Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's CC-Webinar.Live panel and keynote discussion session. And thank you for joining. We would also like to thank Telin team for sponsoring today's CC-Webinar.Live. Now, I would like to pass on the microphone to Eric to introduce today's speakers and later on to moderate the session. For audience, if you have any questions, please do use the chat box option throughout the session. That's all from my side. Eric, over to you.
Thank you very much, Laura, and welcome to all of you out there. I'm delighted on behalf of the CARE community to have a keynote speaker, SJ from Telin, and the panelists, Shika, Valentina, and Elias with me. Today we're going to discuss about a game changer, so the digital transformation of voice, SMS, and virtual number landscape. We will start the session with the keynote presentation from SJ, from Telin. And afterwards, we're going to bridge this into the interactive panel discussion. I'll quickly give all the panelists and the keynote speaker a quick minute to introduce themselves. Valentina, over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon and good evening, whoever is from wherever you are. My name is Valentina. I joined China Mobile 7 years ago, right at the beginning of the operation overseas. And I'm now sales director for the carrier business, responsible for KPI on connectivity, data center, and mobility solutions, messaging, and also IoT sales. Thank you for inviting me today.
Thank you so much, and great having you, Vale. So over to Shika.
Hey, good day, everyone. Thanks for having me on the panel. I have been with Airtel for the last 18 years. I look after the international roaming, messaging, and the global IoT business for Airtel.
Thank you so much, and welcome to you as well. SJ.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Carrier community and my fellow panelists and the audience for giving me this opportunity. I work with Telin. We are the international arm of incumbent telecom group for Indonesia. We are the largest mobile operator in Indonesia. My job is to manage the marketplace strategy as well as business development for Telin. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good having you, and welcome to you as well. And last but not least, Elias.
Hi, Elias David. I head up the emerging markets team at Twilio on the go-to-market side. Prior to joining Twilio, I spent about 10-15 years in the carrier industry working within voice and messaging.
Well, good to have you as well, Elias. And so welcome to all the panelists. SJ, if I can invite you to share with us your keynote presentation, then I would be more than delighted, but foremost the audience out there. So the floor is yours, and good luck.
Sure. Thank you, Eric. May I know if my screen is visible to you all? All right. So I am going to talk about how my organization looks at the challenges that we face in voice, SMS, and numbers business, and what we are going to do to overcome those challenges. Okay, so on your screen, you would see that the challenges seem quite familiar. We have grouped them into 3 categories: the financial ones, operational ones, and the business strategy related. So talking about the financial ones, we all know that the profitability in traditional voice and SMS business, which is a commodity driven business, has gone down over the years. We've been waiting for some kind of an innovation to happen in the voice specifically for us to improve our profitability. If we look at the same time, the increasing trends in the spam or the fraudulent traffic in the market, it is putting even more pressure on an already stressed cash flow that we have. Not to mention that in an extreme case, it may lead to bad debts. And yet we find that there is a lack of real-time credit or traffic monitoring, which brings me to the operational challenges that we face. Now, most of the operators, even today, are struggling with aging tools and systems. There is a lack of real-time analytics everywhere. And if we look at the way we initiate our business, the interconnection, a typical process is so lengthy that it may take months. And by the time we are ready, we've lost the business opportunity. So on this backdrop, imagine we approach CFO office stating that we need a few $1 million to revamp our network, to deploy cutting edge tools, bring in the robust analytics. We all know on the backdrop of the financial concerns we talked about, the answer is going to be a big no. So how do we not just protect, but monetize our network? Well, most of us have tried in some way or other. I would say it's a kind of dilemmatic way. Some of the large groups have consolidated their international trade under one unit. For example, Vodafone has Vodafone Carrier Services for all their global operations. MTN has MTN Business, Airtel here has Airtel Business, and many more. Some of our friends have chosen to outsource their international trade either fully or partially. We all know that PLDT, for example, has outsourced all their voice business to Orange. There are numerous examples we can cite about operators outsourcing their entire A2P SMS business to the aggregators or to the managed firewall providers, the managed services providers. On other side, some operators, glad to have Shikha here, Airtel, Deutsche Telekom, Telecom Italia, they've taken a semi-digital approach, starting their platforms where buyers and sellers can buy from or sell to directly with the platform owners. Yet, if we look at the disruptive technology advancements that we've seen in the industry, it has put us on a back foot. All because we as operators and carriers have not embraced digitalization wholeheartedly. Maybe because we don't have it in our DNA, but it's high time that we must change. So how do we as operators, carriers, cater to the OTTs, enterprises, CSPs, CPaaS players of the world in an efficient manner? Not to mention enterprises, OTTs, CPaaS, etc. They have their own set of challenges. To name a few, the increasing trends of spam and fraud we talked about is even a bigger challenge for them because they are the ones who pay. Besides, it's not just about traffic, it's about sourcing, right? What kind of routes they source or numbers they source, are they legit, right? And if they choose to interconnect directly with the operators, imagine how many multiple contracts they'll have to manage. If they choose not to, they end up paying premium to the middlemen, and not to mention insufficient quality benchmarking that goes with it. At the same time, CPaaS players, I mean, we have Elias here from Twilio, the speed at which they work, operators can't simply match it. And that's why there's a delay in delivery quite often. And primarily, when we look at the commodities like voice, SMS, virtual numbers, these are all non-core part of the business for these established as well as upcoming technology companies. And hence, there is a constant pressure on cost center. And we all know what pressure it results in for our profitability. I won't get into details as I believe my fellow panelists would dive deeper into this topic. Now, that brings me to the way in which we are trying to overcome these challenges as well as what we intend doing. So we believe that we ought to move from competing at network layer to a collaborative approach here. The battlefield, we all know, has already shifted to application layer. I mean, it's no longer an advantage to say that I have 1,000 interconnects or 2,000 interconnects. Maybe, yes, it mattered a few years back. Not anymore. How many of these interconnects are generating sizable business? The typical 80-20 rule applies here as well. In fact, there is an operational cost to maintain each and every interconnect, considering the way we approach interconnect, multiple departments, various functions getting involved into that. So I would say that it's time that we learn from other industries as well. For example, power companies, they share the grid, or airlines, they share their routes. Talking about our line of business, digitalization of business operations and processes is a must. For example, cloud communication tools, if we can bring in to achieve tangible efficiencies and have a much faster GTM, imagine with software-defined interconnects. It could change the way an interconnection is approached today. On the other side, the industry is crying out loud that we must establish trust and transparency to mitigate and wherever possible, neutralize the threat of spammers and fraudsters. And not that we are not doing anything as a community. There are measures being taken. For example, in the US, they've come up with Stir and Shaken to counter the robocalls. or the Chinese regulation. It has grown stricter than ever in terms of their ANI validation, that no repeat ANIs, no vacant or unallocated codes, no traffic from, let's say, satellite codes, etc. Similarly, Indian regulation has embraced blockchain-based DLT for the SMS business. It is one of the best ways to manage end-to-end SMS flow, right from the source to aggregators, to telemarketers, all the way to the operators and to the end users. And yet, we as operators are far from being digitally ready. That brings me to a question: what is digital transformation? We can define it as an integration of digital technology into all possible areas of business to fundamentally change the way we approach our business and the way we deliver value to our partners. In this context, we as an organization believe that the future would be a kind of self-serve model where we offer direct access of products and services to the OTTs and enterprises, not to mention that seamless access to information has to go along with it. If we look at, let's say, CPaaS players or OTTs, thank you, Twilio is here, Elias would vouch for that. The way they have revolutionized the business, we believe that international trade for voice, SMS, and numbers won't be much different. It should be as easy as maybe logging into a food delivery app on our mobile, browsing through the menu, placing an order, and receiving the delivery. The idea is that none of the members, like buyers and sellers, need to manage interconnection anymore. Imagine Grab in Singapore trying to source 5,000 DIDs. Can they just log into a portal or an app and navigate through the offers that maybe likes of Singtels or Startups have made? And once they zero down upon their choice, of course, maintaining the compliance as well as adhering to the terms put forth by the seller, can they just add those numbers in their cart and check out and get the numbers provisioned on the fly? Could it be this simple? Yes, we firmly believe so. And with that, I will end my presentation here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, SJ. Very interesting and a very nice look, let's say, on the digital landscape where we're in today. Let me see if I see some questions from the audience. I don't see any questions from the audience yet. So let's move on and let's bridge this into the panel discussion and invite all the other panelists to it as well. I mean, you really put down, let's say, and talked about a game changer. So the digital transformation of voice, SMS, and virtual number landscape, what we today are talking about. A lot of voice, SMS, and numbers, but by the end of the day, data is needed. So, Valentina, if from your point of view, I mean, being full in the digital transformation, can you give us a landscape snapshot from your side, and what do we see around us?
Yeah, definitely. I can see innovation everywhere. I can see actually that also this innovation is going so fast that is almost impossible to follow right now. What springs to mind is the 5G development, the IoT, the AI progress, new security challenges, as mentioned. We are always online, so it's completely new way of thinking. But I think what we need to remember is that without the network, the underlying infrastructure, none of the communication will be possible. So the digital transformation, in my opinion, is a meticulous planning over the years. And then we saw that with the lockdown. So the lockdown accelerated the digital transformation. However, without the digital transformation well on the way, a lockdown wouldn't have been possible. So I believe that the carriers did a big part already. Of course, we lack of speed in developing other tools and making ourselves younger looking. However, the network is there, the plans are there, and working at China Mobile International really gave me the scale of global development, also on a data side, infrastructure level.
Okay, thank you so much. Staying on the operator side, Shika, what do you see around you? Can you give us a snapshot on the landscape of what you see with regards to the digital transformation?
Yeah, just to take on from where Valentina left, she was talking about more from the carrier. So I will give you a view on the operator as well as the carrier side of Airtel. So we definitely see digitization was required to bring more convenience and value and experience to the customers on the operator side. And with the lockdown, that actually got accelerated with a very fast pace, because, India is a prepaid market. I am sure Shailesh is aware of how the prepaid market works. Your entire revenue sits on the recharges a customer does, right? And the SIMs you sell. With the entire shops being shut down, there was no way for us to get the customers to recharge. So the tides had to be turned, the pace had to be rapidly enhanced so that we can get the customers to top up their phones, and also look at different means of them having to recharge, because everybody doesn't have a smartphone. Smartphone penetration in India is about 50% plus, but the people who don't have smartphones, they are the ones who are more prepaid. So how do they recharge? So you have to go to every nook and corner of the country and enable them, like grocery shops, which were open, medicine shops, etc. So that suddenly, changed the way we were looking at things. So digitization definitely brought in the customer experience part to it. They were able to get more services. We had to do all our product enhancements digitally, serve the customers digitally. Now they can't go to a center, they can't call. If they call, they can't be served the way they were being served because of lack of resources. So I think that helped us fasten things much more than what we had anticipated. On the enterprise side itself, we saw a much faster track of digitization, because again, suddenly the demand for data was very high. So everybody needed data to be able to work from home. So digitization plan was enhanced. We were able to capture the audience. We were able to serve our customers better. And on the carrier side, though it is a little different, we are also in the journey of digitization. We already have on the carrier side, on the voice side, we have our online portal, as Shailesh also mentioned. We are trying to give a faster service to the customer, give them online view, because that's what the customers want. You just go somewhere, you don't need to call someone, you don't need to email someone. Can I get a view of what is my usage, what is my credit, what do I get, what is the price I'm paying? All that view is available online. And we are going to enhance that to the other parts of the carrier business, which is messaging and toll-free numbers, etc., which we do on the carrier side. So definitely, yeah, that's the journey which we are on, and it's moving at a good pace.
Okay, so thank you. Now, Elias, I mean, SJ, we're referring twice to you already, that you guys, as one of the biggest CPaaS players in the world, are leading the troops, actually, showing us and showing the carriers and the operator how to move, where to move, what are the possibilities. Please share with us your landscape snapshot of how everything looks like.
Okay. Yeah. First of all, I want to say, SJ, I really enjoyed that. I think you actually got it spot on. If I talk about starting with that carrier layer, I remember, almost when, before leaving Telia, there's a move now towards operators enabling numbers, but there was initially a lot of reticence towards that. So in Sweden, for example, you could get numbers from Tele2 because they weren't really that integrated into enterprise space, but Telia didn't necessarily want to do it because they saw CPaaS as a threat, right? Fast forward a few years and numbers are becoming, readily available across most operators because they understand it is now a new revenue stream. And they understand that this is a great way to now monetize a network along with messaging. When it comes to digital transformation, look, what CPaaS players or what Twilio have pioneered and done was really take that number, really take voice, really take messaging and move it up into the API layer. So, take voice from SIP into the API layer, and then, that enables integrations. That enables call recording to be done on voice. That enables text to speech. But most importantly, that API, then becomes something that you can integrate into your digital transformation journey as a customer. So if you're a customer, digital transformation to you means, probably utilizing Salesforce, utilizing Zendesk, bringing together all your cloud communications tools together, moving away from on-prem towards, all these tools that are fundamentally all, enabled to be integrated. And that's where the communication channels come into that now. That's this evolution, that's true digital transformation. And then, the final part of that is as we move forward, it's the next layer of digital transformation is personalization. So you have the tools, you have all your platforms, you have all your systems, and you use that to create this, personalized, customer view and understand that customer journey and truly understand who your customer is and utilize all of these channels to communicate with them, on the right channel at the right time with the right message. And that's what I really think digital transformation is, and what certainly is for Twilio and what we're moving towards.
Okay, thank you. Now, Shika, voice SMS numbers, is a legacy or a traditional business for operators and carriers, as we know. So how does, let's say, a little bit the near future look like to you? What can we expect there?
See, there are multiple angles to the way you look at voice and SMS and what kind of voice and SMS and numbers you're looking towards, right? So if you look at voice, there is a calling fraternity within the country. There is something outside the country. So what you would see is changing is the international calling, right? And that is the change. The change is because it is expensive, right? If you look at the domestic market, it is how the retail plans are structured. If you want to charge pay per use, you will find voice declining. If you charge it as a bundle, say the way we do it in India, you pay for a plan and you get voice free. Within India, you can call incoming, outgoing is free. But in countries where you'd say, I will charge per minute, we see voices declining even locally. So they are moving towards app for calling. I know apps have their own advantages because it has more rich content. You can do a video call, etc. But you will have to look at the lens from different aspects as to what is growing and what is regrowing. How do you see the future? So yes, voice definitely is on the international side declining because of the termination charge, replacement of, with WhatsApp and all kind of calling apps. On the messaging side, we see it is still growing, and it is related to the smartphone penetration. It is related to how the enterprises communicate with their customers. We do see new kinds of platforms coming in which are offering alternate means of communication, which is going to gel in with the traditional messaging. So for the next couple of years, I do see messaging growing, and alternate means will get added on to give a better experience to the customer, where you need interactive engagement with consumers. So those mediums will take those roles, because on SMS, it is very difficult to have a two-way communication, right? So that would be replaced by, say, an alternate channel like a rich messaging service. So, but on the whole, it is still a service which is going to continue to grow as the base grow, as the smartphone penetration go, because it is more authentic, more secure as of now. But I think it all will gel together and have to coexist. The whole market will still grow, and numbers is not that big a business for us. It is quite, for a few use cases, we see it's more useful for P2A, because it also depends on what kind of regulation is there in each country. India, there is a lot of regulation, so that's not, you cannot procure numbers freely. You have to have the KYC, etc., and there are different regulations which apply. So that's not something which is that big. SMS definitely it's a good business and it's growing.
Okay, thank you, Vale. On the, especially on the SMS, as it is, the
Yes.
The legacy business we are, I mean, operators and carriers are working. But what do you see happening? Just purely on the SMS, what do you see happening in the near future?
Yeah, definitely. We saw an increase on and good result on the A2P, definitely. And we planning to become bigger, planning to do better. And because I can also see the application that we potentially can have on IoT solutions, I think I'm confident to say that the A2P will grow because it will come from new products out there in the market. Potentially also saw some voice streams because some of the user cases for IoT solution required SMS alerts, A2P alerts. In the future, they might require actually voice calls and a conversation, potentially even a conversation with a machine. So it will not be the traditional voice. However, messaging and people speaking and machine speaking to machine and people speaking to machine will generate more new revenue streams. The way of thinking is how we as carrier can capture it. Of course, CMI is well positioned on the digital transformation because we will have the capabilities to set up the IoT solution, but also to create SMS alert and also probably to add voice into that. So I feel positive. I feel that from our side, at least, we also get the support of other players in the market, maybe an ecosystem where we can outsource maybe collaboration softwares, we can outsource some AI. So it's all coming along quite well. And on the virtual numbers and voice, I mean, we have some other requests. For example, we do offer cloud SMS and cloud communication for our customers, and some smaller initiative, but something that it can just create a base for something else. I like to remember my early days at China Mobile when we didn't have an office line. So we were calling each other by our own self-developed Jago Trip app, which was studied for Chinese travelers abroad, where they can receive SMS and voice calls for free. We could rent a local number for the local stay and basically local calling, and we could call for free our colleagues in Hong Kong. And we now the app has definitely developed, and we add on some added value services like booking the train, the airlines, booking the hotel, have access to translation services, exchange rate services. So we just experienced this app for 10 years. Is there, so moving that to something else now that the people are not traveling, I can see that happening. So yeah, definitely SMS is a must, and but a lot more coming, I think.
Okay, thank you, Ale. Now, Elias, of course, we would like to have, let's say, your helicopter view as well on what do you see in the near future, and later on we'll go a bit more in deep of several submatter subjects. So give us your snapshot. What do you see coming towards us? What should we look out for?
So this is, you're talking obviously about like voice SMS numbers. Exactly. All right. I see, look, in terms of numbers, there's more and more operators now who are willing, as mentioned before, to enable you to have numbers. I think the regulatory and compliance around that is getting, better and more stringent, which is what it needs to be to really create this trust between an operator, a regulator, and Twilio, a CPaaS player. Everyone needs to be on that same page and make sure you've got the right documentation from the customer before you before you onboard them. And the reason is simple, as you mentioned, things like robocalls, flash calls, if you've got a short call, if that's coming from a marketer, that's clearly not something you want. But if that's your Uber driver or Deliveroo driver calling you, for 30 seconds outside, tell you that's something that we all do want. So if we can continue to create that trust, that ecosystem and that channel, particularly voice and numbers, will continue to thrive. As I said, it will move more into the cloud communication sphere through APIs, and what we certainly see would be things like, AI, machine learning, or thinking about intent on the voice call. So voice has always been an interesting channel because it's a call between two people. It's not like messaging where you've got this kind of text that you can analyze it. But now as we move forward and you get this kind of text to speech on voice, and you start to get intent analysis that can be derived from calls, that actually makes it a more powerful channel on your communication, because you can understand your customer better from those calls and then use the AI to think about how you're going to interact with them in the future. In terms of messaging, of course, if you're an operator side, you're just seeing revenue go up the whole time. And of course, as Twilio, we're seeing, continuously new innovative use cases of how messaging can be used. I'm going to sound like a bit of a broken record here, Eric, because I said this the last time, but I always worry, and Shailesh, this is directed at you. I always do worry when operators, in Indonesia, are putting their prices up to, whatever it is today, that I think it's very short-termist. I think that what you're going to see over the coming year now is WhatsApp really start to eat into your verification. Now that WhatsApp is an open API, even on Twilio, verified for verification, and it's much cheaper in Indonesia now to verify someone on WhatsApp, and the conversion rates are identical. I think we've kind of seen this peak for operators, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if 2022 it levels off in 23, we start to see it decline again. But that's let's say my high level view of the various channels and where they sit.
Okay, thank you. So that's we'll go into that when we come to the next point. Now, Shailesh, given the market situation, do you see the digital transformation is inevitable? We mentioned already a couple of things. Digital telco, where do you see the innovation happening within your organization?
Thank you, Eric. Yes, of course, it is inevitable. What we've done on our part is that we've launched a marketplace, which is a public digital connectivity exchange for commodity-based voice, SMS, and numbers, and more as well. And it caters to enterprises, OTTs, CPaaS players of the world, operators, carriers, everyone. It's called New Traffics. And incidentally, all three panelists, their renowned organization, are already members of that marketplace. I believe that Airtel and CMI, they're already transacting reasonably well, and Twilio just recently joined, so we hope to see something big happening with them. The idea of this marketplace was conceived because, as I mentioned earlier, we wanted to ensure that on the network layer, we don't quite keep on competing with each other. That's where the collaboration should start from. And then as we cater to the enterprises or the OTTs of the world, the trust and transparency that we talked about should come in handy. So with that intention, what we've done is in the marketplace, a buyer and a seller can directly and transparently deal with each other. So there's absolutely no issue in terms of middlemen, compliance, etc. At the same time, we ourselves are a CPaaS enabler, New Apex, as you may already be aware of. So this marketplace platform that we've done provides powerful APIs backed up by our own CPaaS with a simple integration. The aim here is to simplify trading by means of software-defined interconnects. And we should also offer real-time data analytics and payments as well. We are doing that already. And we have to have a unified approach to the commodity-based products and services in our line of business. For now, we just have these three that we are talking about. Few more are getting added soon enough. So the way in which we have given this transparency and all, for example, to the buyers and sellers, it also enables them to make an informed decision and accurate decision as to what they want to source. Why? Because it's a marketplace. So there are certain KPIs that we follow, observe for both buyers and sellers, which are updated from time to time. And it is provided to the members through a powerful market view. So essentially, when I look to buy something, I know what I'm getting into. I know the terms set forth by the seller. So this helps big time. That's about it from our side.
Well, I'm happy that I mean, when I open up an API and whatever, and I want to do something, I see the terms and conditions. To be honest with you, I hardly read them. So if you tell me we know the terms and conditions, yes, you're absolutely right. But do we read them? We just say accept because we want to move on, right? So just a side effect of it. Anyway, thank you, Shailesh. Now, Shika, looking at the market situation, and also for you, because you mentioned that also you see the digital transformation is inevitable. It's going on. We're in the middle of it. Where do you see innovation happening within your organization, within Airtel?
So as I mentioned, the innovation is happening more to do with where we have customer touch points. How do we improve the customer experience? How do we deliver faster? So first of all, how do we capture the requirements of the customer? So what do the customers want? Rather than the customer reaching to me, traditionally you go through agents or you go through, sales team, etc. So enabling them through digital mediums enables us to hear them faster, develop solutions which they need and deliver faster, right? So if there's a time to delivery, how can I squeeze that timeline for my customer and deliver better and faster? How do we improve the experience? How do we collect better? So because they have now a better view of what they are paying for, if they have disputes, they can easily, tell us what the problem is. It's easier to communicate, right? So that is where the digitization is happening. In addition to that, we are focusing on the new products which we are talking about, which is outside the telecom domain, which is to say it is Wink, which is our application, which is similar to an OTT app, our payments bank, which is very important for the digital times, and stuff like that. So that is where we are also focusing. Our IoT business is also another area where we are talking about digitization, because it gives you the power to take control of the SIM cards, manage their life cycle, etc. So we have a platform. So the thought process is to make the customers' life easier and enable them better.
Okay, thank you, Elias. How's it in Twilio? I mean, where do you see even more innovation coming, or what are you working on?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I think, given the Twilio view for the coming year, and a big focus is, and I touched on it before, it's about that personalization. So with Twilio kind of acquiring Segment last year as a CDP, customer data platform, really starting to understand your customer on each of those touch points. And I believe we're going to see customer engagement and marketing, particularly for messaging and SMS, pivot from almost the legacy database approach of this was your database of customers, you put it into a messaging platform and you kind of send this blast to your customers saying, hey, 50% sale on XYZ. We're going to move towards real-time, almost like incident-based communication. So, through the CDP, through understanding what your customer is doing at a certain point in time, and the most obvious use case we will talk about is kind of that abandoned cart. Then at that moment, that's when you send the message that says, and based on that consumer's behavior, it might be on an SMS, it might be an email, it might be through WhatsApp, but that's where it's heading. And certainly for Twilio over the next year, the product we launched at Signal called Twilio Engage, that's kind of bringing together the CDP, understanding what your consumers are doing, and then ensuring you communicate with the right time and the right channel. So I think the experience will get better for consumers. And I think it continues to be a great opportunity for operators and carriers now, on the messaging front and on other channels as well.
Okay. Shailesh, I mean, Elias was previously mentioning the robocalls and the flash calls. So let's get into the voice a little bit. I mean, it has been on a decline, but lately it seems that there is a revived interest in something called flash calls, if we like it or not, but they're around. What do you think about it from an operator's carrier's perspective?
Thank you, Eric. So let's first try and clarify what a flash call is for the larger audience, as some people may not know much about it. So when we seek an OTP while using an app, maybe reset password, or we are doing some transaction, we normally get an SMS OTP, which we punch in and then done. In some cases, app picks up that OTP, right, by itself and punches it in. How does that happen? The app takes a dip in our phone's SMS history and picks up the OTP. Now replace this SMS with a call. We get a missed call, a flash call, and the app takes a dip in the call history of the phone and picks up the last 4, 6, or whatever number of digits that are required for the OTP. Now, Android does provide such an API. Apple, for now, has stayed away from it. If you look at this from an end user's perspective, this mechanism is, I would say, better compared to SMS, simply because of the speed and convenience. However, Elias was talking about that earlier. From an operator perspective, there is no revenue in this. Why? Because it's a missed call. And we as operators monetize our voice calls through conversation duration, right? Billing per second, per minute, etc. So it's a major loss of revenue for us if it is a flash call, which we could have otherwise monetized through A2P SMS. Now, for a large operator like this, it's millions of dollars at stake. So because of this, some operators are working towards finding ways to block flash calls. Our view as an organization is that it's an innovation in voice, maybe the only notable innovation in the last decade or so. So we shouldn't stop an innovation from helping the end users. So the ideal situation, we believe, is that we must find a way to detect flash calls and then try to monetize those. Now, detection technique is a very large topic by itself. Let's not get into that. But about monetization, we must start charging per attempt, not per second or not per minute. And it only goes to show that an innovation like this, flash calls, does change the way telcos approach business. And I personally support it wholeheartedly. And as we all know, there is an ongoing research about various other means, like Elias also mentioned, about validating or verifying users' identity. It's quite exciting times ahead, I think. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Shika, what's your take on this?
Yeah, so I totally agree with what Shailesh is saying. So flash calls and new ways to bypass, or I say replace SMS is something which will continue to happen. It's like if you say you have a thief and you have a police, right? It's a constant chase. So yeah, even SMS, if I just look at the normal traditional SMS, the firewalls do every day have to block something which is not legitimate, right? It could be a bypass, it could be a fraud, it could be a illegitimate content or whatever. Similarly, I see flash calls. So that is something new. There will be, I'm sure, solutions which come up to enable operators to monetize the flash calls also. So it's all a question of how do we monetize, what solutions are coming. So it is something which will be there, and I'm sure there are more things which will come up. It's not going to stop at flash calls only. So flash SMS was one, right? At one point of time, nobody could monetize that. The only problem is it could not be used for OTPs. So it's just for marketing communication it was used, and we don't see it anymore. So let's see how it goes. This is a good solution to work at. So we'll see what to do about it.
Thank you. I mean, Elias, while you brought up this topic of the flash calls, and Shika's also mentioning the SMS phishing. So what do you think about it? What can we do about it? Because it's clearly a pain.
Yeah. Sorry, when I was talking about flash calls, I meant more like short duration calls rather than this. But look, I think the thing with flash calls, if I take it from my view, I think it's probably going to be low conversion and poor customer experience compared to SMS, right? Or even, let's say, WhatsApp as a channel. The reason it's being used is because it's cheap and it's basically free for now. So I think, and I don't see a way, having worked in voice for 10 years, I just don't see a way you can stop that on your network. And you can start to think about the amount of numbers that are doing it and start to monetize those numbers, but fundamentally a call can come in from anywhere, and it's going to be really hard to perceive. And I also think it opens up areas of fraud that could occur on flash calls as well. So tongue-in-cheek, my answer is, let's find the right price point for verification, so that you're not causing people to think about new ways to verify their customers, through flash calls or through other channels, and like take this long-term view of that customer journey and of your revenues over 5 years, and protect it on a 5-year cycle. So that's probably not what you wanted to hear, but that's how I see it.
I would just like to add to what Ilyas is saying. So, I mean, it's not a question. I think you're talking more about international pricing. See,
Yeah.
It is not about the international pricing. Even if you look at the local pricing, it is always a fight between free versus charged, irrespective of the price. I do understand the price of international is going up. You're finding alternate channels for the international part, but that doesn't mean this will not work in the domestic market, right? Because traditionally, what happens if you look at the pricing, if an operator is charging X, the aggregator sells it at X minus Y. Now they do it in some fashion. They have a way to derive that price, and the more, so they flash call could be one of the ways which they add to bring down the price. So it is not the right price. It is free versus a price.
It remains a pain, right?
And fraud definitely will happen, because see, the customer does not give you consent to send a missed call and take information from the phone and use it for verification. They are not aware of it. So it's a privacy issue. It's not a missed call. It's not a short duration call that he can see where the missed call came from, right? So it is like something is coming into my phone, my application is storing it, but I'm not even aware something is happening. It can obviously be misused. There would be like if you say SMS was being used for fraud, we see the same thing in India. We spoke about blockchain coming in. So blockchain was deployed to stop the unsolicited messages. Those messages are moving to WhatsApp.
I think it's a really good point, and I think probably then what we're talking about, what we're looking at, is maybe what's happening in the US now with with caller verification, stir shaking happening over there, and potentially then operators such as yourself enabling numbers that could be legitimately verified, selling those numbers into CPaaS players as, this is a number that's legitimate, and when it ends up on the caller's handset, then they know it's that the prefix that it's starting from is truly a legitimate prefix for verification. I think you need to then kind of close the loop with the OEMs and the Samsungs of this world, so they understand what their role in this as well, which is probably a lot going to be where the challenge lies. But from what you're saying, it's going to be that verification, it's going to be that consumer trust sitting at the beginning of the process between an operator and a Twilio, and then the end user gets visibility on their phone that this is a good number while you try to block the others.
Okay. Shall I, a question to you, and actually it comes out of the chat box from the audience. I mean, operators are not ready to support current market demands, even though the CPaaS enablers and providers have come up with the latest technologies and platforms. So how can we bridge this gap?
Well, the question does have a lot of merit in it. Yes, even my fellow panelists did mention about operators and in some cases regulation not quite being supportive. Talk about Shikha's home country or our market, Indonesia, very strict regulation. It does help in some cases, but in some cases it makes life difficult for us to do business. So how do we bridge that? Possibly by working closely with the regulation. That's one way. There's no question that operators on their part have to embrace digitalization. As we talked about, let's say Twilio places an order of 5,000 numbers on us, just out of the blue. If we did not have the tools that we've deployed recently, can we cater to that request? No. Now we are in the position that yes, we can start thinking about doing it. But yes, the gap has to be bridged, both from the operator side in terms of digital readiness and from the regulation in terms of allowing certain use cases to be valid. I mean, flash call, for example, we talked about briefly, just touching that again. It's a problematic situation when it comes to, let's say, privacy issues, as Shikha pointed out. At the same time, it's an innovation. There are legit cases. The other day, I discussed with Val, and she said that there are multiple IoT-related use cases which are all legit for flash calls, right? We make calls to devices. If we authorize that number range, as Elias said, can we still protect those numbers from, let's say, potential Wangiri? It's today virtually next to impossible to differentiate between a flash call and a Wangiri attack. So yes, we need to evolve. Technology has to support all this. That's my take on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now let's move on, and Vale, maybe for you, if you could kick this off. Do you see digital transformation bringing about much needed transparency in the trade?
Yeah, definitely. I think with the new tools, for example, of artificial intelligence, the machines will start, I don't know, checking everything that is going on in a more precise way. So that will require, that could also be, of course, applied to the telecom services and to communications between people and enterprise communication, etc. So yeah, the digital transformation will bring transparency, but of course it will open up to new security challenges. And I think, you know, bridging with the question from before, telecoms, especially in a highly regulated market like China or Indonesia, probably telecom need to find a way to bridge this gap by, you know, have a first filter, have a, you know, a really powerful team and tools that they can, let's say, put together a strategy on how to get the right traffic into the country. So that is probably the telecom is the bridge between what the government or regulation wants and what is out there. So we are like a translator. We need to find the strategy and the right, maybe AI tools to help us with that. On the transparency side, yeah, I think probably teaming up with the security companies as well is important. Outsource whatever we are not able to do. We need to outsource to security companies and checking each component if it's secure or not, because the ecosystem now is getting more and more complicated. So I think also on the ecosystem side, we need to have all individual components secure, and that's will bring new challenges as well.
Okay, Shikha, you want to add something to it on the transparency?
Definitely, it is bringing transparency. If I just say, as a customer of Airtel, I have an Airtel Thanks app. It gives me information about all my services with Airtel, whether it's a mobile service, whether it's a DTH, whether it's a broadband, whether it's Extreme app, Wink app, anything, payment bank. Everything is integrated into one. I can track all my transactions there. I can see what plans I can upgrade my plans. So this is transparency to the customer. They can see what they are using, how much data is left. So that's what transparency is all about. So the same thing we are trying to integrate into the carrier side, which we've done for the voice business. There you can again see, rather than requesting for information and reconciling at the end of the month, everything is visible to you. So you know what you consumed, where you've sent, what is the success you're getting for each of the routes you're using, and what quality of routes you're getting.
Okay. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, after all the discussion, maybe Elias, you can start with it. Do you believe, or do you still believe actually, that voice and SMS connectivity business has a place in this digital era?
Yeah, I think for me, it's key. It's key now to companies communicating with their customers it's the innovations that are happening on that layer. I think the way it used to be kind of, let's say, consumed and communicated 5 to 10 years ago with P2P, let's call it, that's clearly changed and evolved, and now it's evolved into the business layer, but in a different way that it used to be. It's involved now into the integration in everyone's digital, their kind of digital transformations now include all these channels and the integrations. And I think it's absolutely key. And the more operators like Shire, such as Telin, and the more operators that enable the Twilios and CPaaS and enable us to have numbers and connectivity, the more that absolutely this will be key.
You would be completely happy, right?
Very much so, yeah.
I can imagine. Vale, so your take on if you still believe that voice and SMS connectivity business has a place in this digital era?
Yeah, we, part is our DNA, so we won't forget that. We probably will try to transform it, into something else and trying to monetize on that. And really, as I said before, setting up new, let's say, developing new products like the IoT for us is a big focus.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Shika?
Yeah, so my answer is yes, definitely voice and SMS are here to stay. They will be a part of the whole ecosystem. They will remain, and we will see more layers coming on top of them. So it has to be an integrated play when we have to serve the end customers.
Okay, thank you. Now, Shailesh, just also for you that question and some last famous words actually on the if you still believe that the voice and SMS connectivity business has still a place. So scope a little bit on top of that, a little bit the future. So
okay.
For us.
Thank you. So I do agree with my fellow panelists. Although it's a traditional connectivity business, and especially in an era that is dominated by digital companies or the social media giants, technology may change. In fact, it will change further. But the fundamentals of how we do this business will continue to exist. So if some use cases are no longer functional, new ones will surface. I mean, traditional support center or audio conferencing related use cases for virtual numbers have been on a decline. Yet the new ones have surfaced. Number masking, as I said, is the largest use case today, followed by maybe IoT, two-way, etc. So these use cases will keep on driving the growth. And to cater to such use cases, API readiness is a must. Less than half of the operators today offer APIs for these commodities. So ease of procurement and the speed of delivery and processing heavy actionable data, that would matter a lot going forward. And just to cite a simple example, despite having so many potential solutions for identity verification or validation, SMS still remains by far the most reliable way of verifying a user's identity, primarily because of its reach and simplicity. So how we as an operators or carriers transform ourselves digitally to serve the enterprises, OTTs, and the CPaaS players of the world would define digital telco 2.0. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And with those famous words, ladies and gentlemen, it seems that we're heading towards the end of this session. And thank you for the keynote speaker and sponsor, Telin, of course, for your participation and giving interesting presentation, SJ. So thank you very much. And of course, all the panelists, so Valentina, Shika, and Elias, thank you very much. So all of you out there, we are at the end of this webinar session, and I would like to thank today's keynote speaker, Shailesh, of course, for the interesting presentation, all the panelists for sharing their knowledge with us and with you out there. And also thank you for the audience for participating and listening. So we're looking forward to welcoming you both virtual and physical events for next year. Also for this year, actually, don't forget Miami, guys. GCCM is coming up. So please visit our event portal for more information. If you're interested, by the way, in supporting and sponsoring one of our future branded webinar, please contact the CC team. We're ready for you to pick up the phone and see your messages coming in for doing that. And for all fresh update and contact, please follow us on the 4 media channels, which are, of course, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So, but please also, all of you, don't forget to subscribe to our Telegram news channel to receive exclusive invitation and to our upcoming CC webinar live sessions. So guys, again, Shailesh, Elias, Valentina, and Shika, thank you very much for participating, for sharing, and Telin for sponsoring, and all greetings to all of you out there. So guys, we come to the end, but stay tuned. But ciao for now, and see you all soon on this channel. So stay safe and healthy, and goodbye.